My personal motivations for doing the job that I am doing is improving healthcare and transforming mindsets. I'm working for a big German corporate in which transforming mindsets is extremely important to establish new digital innovations. Grants for Apps is our startup collaboration framework, and people always ask me, do you do apps? And then I say, no, absolutely not. That's what we started with, and we also started with giving grants to startups, but that was 4 years ago. Unfortunately, we never had the time to think about changing the name. That's why we're still on Grants for Apps, but we will change it sometime soon, that you're no longer confused about what we do. I wanted to talk about the 4 seasons of healthcare innovations. The reason I want to do it is because people hardly understand the challenges of healthcare startups. Additionally, I wanted to be as placative as possible to give you a better understanding of it. It's not all black and white, so don't take me for everything I say, but this is the rough pathway of a startup company. And when you understand that, then you will understand how we are trying to support them and how that helps us as a pharmaceutical company. So it all starts off in the spring when you find your big love or your big idea. And that's when the founder tries to find the problem he wants to solve in healthcare. It's always about problems. 3 typical examples on how to find an idea in healthcare. The first one is like Fuad, who says he wants to work in healthcare because healthcare is something that makes impact, no matter on which scale, but it makes an impact on individual people. It's not like, I heard a comparison very nicely. If you would think that Uber is going to go missing tomorrow, what's going to happen with the world? It's not going to go down. But if you take a healthcare company out tomorrow, that might cause the death of lives. That's why healthcare is such a strong impact economy. A second thing is Viomedo. Alex worked in the healthcare space and he wanted to validate a dental space startup. So he wanted to do a clinical study, and then he figured out finding patients to do a clinical study is horribly difficult. That's why he then started a startup to digitize healthcare clinical trials and patient finding. And the last and probably most significant motive to start a healthcare company is when you have the disease yourself. Just like Armin, who founded MedAngel, which is a thermometer that tracks the temperature of insulin. And he is a diabetes type 1 patient. It's really not difficult to find problems in healthcare. I mean, our healthcare systems are not up to date. That's for sure. And there's millions and millions of problems that you can target. Just talk to people. Just talk to your doctor. He's going to love you for having an ear for what he has to say. Then comes the summer. So you have your idea. What's next? You have to talk to a lot of people. The more people you talk to, the better. So you're not just going to shake one hand. You're going to shake a lot of hands. What you're trying to do is validate your idea, and that's not easy in healthcare. It's not like you have one supplier and one buyer. You have multiple stakeholders, so you have to talk to as many people as possible. These are 2 startups which have talked within the 3 months of our program to more than 100 people, not just inside Bayer, but also in any other kind of organization. Because you need to make sure that the use case you're tackling actually has an impact on a certain population. And for that, you need to talk to as many people as possible and shake a lot of hands. Next comes the fall, where you will need money. You've basically validated your idea. You see the need is real. It's not just your neighbor who says that he has trouble finding a doctor. It's an actual need. So now you need some money. And when you want to have money, investors want to see a business model. And again, it's healthcare. It's not buyer and seller. It's a totally different story. This is what a normal economy looks like. This is what healthcare kind of looks like. It's a little bit exaggerated. Then you're going to see the setup of the Indian governmental health system. So this just only pictures the institutional side. It doesn't picture the private side. So that's an added layer on top of that. And in order to understand the stakeholder system, the most important thing you have to know as a healthcare startup is to know the incentives of each and every one of them. The problem is when you solve a problem for the doctor, you might generate a problem for the health insurance, or for the patient, or for the pharmaceutical company. And then you start bringing stakeholders against each other, and many, many healthcare startups have failed because they haven't recognized the needs of all the stakeholders in the system. And finally, the winter. And the winter is long. The winter is very, very long. You've basically done everything you could do on paper. You've done your Excels, you've done your business models, you know your stakeholders. And now comes the winter where you try to actually validate your technology and show that it impacts the standard of care. The standard of care, a pretty misleading term. you would think it's a standard, so it's probably like somewhere here and everything else is here. But in healthcare, the standard of care means the top that is possible. And if you're not better than the top, you're not being recognized at all. So if you want to enter healthcare, you always have to be the best in what you do. And that's kind of difficult. In order to do that, you have to make clinical studies. And this is a typical process of a clinical study, and each and single one of these steps requires a lot of expertise. Just the first one, to make a protocol that can actually be approved, is a lot of work. And if you've never worked in healthcare before, difficult. And then, I mean, the most important part is down on the left, which you're gonna do once you finish your clinical study. And once you've done that, you might end up with one of these badges on your slide, on your website, hopefully. If not, don't even talk to the people in the industry. And you also need a lot of data privacy, especially when you want to go into the German market, for example. You're going to get crazy on the data privacy regulations. And then when you've done all of that, you try to sell it. And that's another issue, because doctors don't have time. We, like the pharmaceutical industry, keeps them busy with sales reps a lot. So they don't really have time to listen to startups. Same with insurance companies, they only want to save money. So investing is for them a very big deal. And that's where we come into place. Well, first of all, two actually successful examples. There's really not many successful examples. I mean, if I just mention Theranos to you, you're all gonna spin your head, and that's what's currently happening with healthcare and investors. They're like, okay, that can't turn out well. My Sugar is a diabetes management app that just got sold to Roche for a very good price. And you should all know Practo, which raised several $1 million and that are still running and doing a very good business model. Just for your information, I said before, you need to take stakeholder management into account. Something like Practo would be impossible in Germany because the interests of different stakeholders go against it. So the patient would love it, but the health insurance doesn't. And that's why it won't work. And the doctors wouldn't make profit out of it, so that's also an issue. That's why it doesn't work. That's where we come into place. We have an Accelerator program, very classical one. That's what we started with 3 years ago. We were the first pharmaceutical company in the world to start this. We offer 100 days office space in Berlin, 50,000 euro in funding, which is not a lot for a healthcare company, but it's a beginning. And of course, everything our company has to offer. That's basically our early stage track. That's for companies that are just diving into clinical studies and need the expertise from our people. However, we saw an evolvement, a development, when we went to our people in 2014 and said, like to our business people, our business units, the brand managers, the marketing managers, the developers, and we said, hey, we have a startup here. They closed the door before I finished speaking, because you just couldn't trust something that is called a startup. But this has changed. In the past 3 years, we have seen developments where people come to us and say, agency is too expensive, doing it ourselves, we don't have the people. How about a startup? And that's why we introduced a Dealmaker, where we strategically try to find challenges in our business. In the last round, it was about 30 challenges. And these challenges we are trying to match with companies like you. And by doing that, we solve our business people challenges, and we bring you a pretty big customer, Bayer. And this happens in a lot of different, like these are just some of them, women's health clinical trials, also artificial intelligence, etc. India has a lot of great innovations. That's also why I'm standing here.